in your experience, coming from a pastor background, coming from a Christian, coming from that in depth into that faith and that religion, what was it for you that you just said, can you point to one thing or a couple of things that just really stood out for you?
Well, I tell you what, a lot of people make the same exact mistake. I'm talking about Torah people that come to see the realization of Torah and the Jewish text, and that is they think that these pastors don't know. They don't know this stuff. They don't know what we learned from the Torah. You got to realize these pastors, a lot of them can read Hebrew, they can read Greek. They studied the books. We would assume that they've read them and in context, and so they understand it. We can assume that they've read the entire Bible in context, and they understand what's going on. And I can tell you a story of a gentleman that I studied Torah with many years ago, and he married into a Baptist dynasty. Okay, now he was still going to church with his wife and all of this stuff, but he didn't believe any of it. He believed the Torah and as we were understanding it from the Jewish perspective, but he still had to keep peace in the home and go to church and all this stuff, because it was such a big, like I said, dynasty of preachers. I think in her family there were 8 ministers of success, successful big Baptist ministers in her family. So, and so he would come and we would study Torah and we would learn all these things from the Jewish perspective. And he would get with his in-laws and his wife's family, and he would want to throw things at them like, hey, you didn't know this, but look at this and look at all this idolatry in there and look at all this. And they would tell him, we know all that. We were taught all this. They know every bit of how Christianity was connected with idolatry. They could tell you when it came about, give you the dates and how it, because they studied it. People assume that they don't teach this in seminary, but they do. But also what they're taught is you don't have to tell this to your congregation because they don't want to hear this. They don't want to have to put up with this. They don't want to have to hear it. They don't have to deal with it. So don't tell it. But we're telling you, this is the pagan origins of your belief, of your monotheistic belief. But don't share it with your congregation. They don't want to hear it. And so we can't assume that they don't know. They know exactly. They have built a system around it to justify it and to clarify it in their own way. How would you call the New Testament the gospel, the word of God, when there's not a word in it that God speaks?